I'm particularly moved by how it affects other people. I have a couple that came to their first date here, and they sit in the same seats every time they come in. So I get to hear a lot of memories, and I get to hear a lot of appreciation. So it's pretty amazing.
Welcome to episode 98 of the LorraineCounty.com Insights podcast. I'm your host, Ed Skimmon. This episode is made possible thanks to the generous support of our champion sponsors, Lorain County Community College, Lorain County Commissioners, Community Foundation of Lorain County, Lorain County JVS, Emerge Inc., and WOBL Radio. Today, we are talking with Christopher Pataky, Executive Director of the Lorain Palace Theater. Join us as Chris talks about the historic and cultural significance of the theater, its diverse programming, and the ongoing efforts to preserve its architectural beauty. He shares how community support, creative vision, and practical leadership are keys to sustaining the theater's legacy and shaping its vibrant future. The Lorain Palace Theater is a deeply meaningful place for me personally. Growing up, I attended afternoon movies most Tuesdays during the summer. In fact, for many years, my dad volunteered to collect the 75-cent admission fee. It was his way of reconnecting with former students and staying connected to the community. I even attended theater camp at the Palace for a couple of summers and had the chance to perform in The Wizard of Oz on the Palace stage. Over the years, I've returned to the Palace many times. I met Randy Macho Man Savage at a professional wrestling show, watched local theater productions and documentary films, attended State of the City addresses, enjoyed national comedians and national musical acts, and most recently saw John Baumgartner's Beneath the Light, which was filmed right here in Lorain. Places like the Palace Theater matter because they are more than just venues. They are gathering spaces where neighbors run into each other, shared experiences are created, and a community becomes more connected. One small note, this episode was recorded in late December. Like many people at the time, I was recovering from a cold, so I apologize in advance for how my voice sounds. Here's my conversation with Christopher Pataky.
My name is Christopher J. Pataky, and I'm the Executive Director at the Lorain Palace Theater.
Welcome, Christopher. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights. To begin, can you give us an overview of the Lorain Palace Theater?
I think that the Palace Theater is, I would assume, the oldest operating business in Lorain County. Obviously a historic structure. We've done pretty much every type of entertainment that you could think of. I mean, obviously prior to my being here as well. And I think that we've made a pretty conscious effort over the past 9 years of myself and some others being here to diversify our programming to supply a little bit of something for everybody.
Could you describe your role and responsibilities as Executive Director of the Palace?
Honestly, everybody that works here, it's pretty much a skeleton crew. Myself, Kayla Spears, Mike Rogers, Kenneth Lanning, that's pretty much the full-time crew here. We all wear a number of different hats. Sometimes I clean toilets. Sometimes I talk to famous people. We all do a little bit of everything. Obviously, I'm in charge of overseeing the entire operation in some capacity. Luckily, I have some very capable people in multiple departments. I'm in charge of the booking, the scheduling, most of the arranging, and a lot of things.
Let's start by talking about the history of the building. As I understand it, the Palace was built in 1928 as part of the rebuilding of downtown Lorain after the 1924 tornado. Could you tell us about the history of the building and the significant features?
I wasn't here in 1928, but the opening date, I believe, was April 19th, 1928. And this structure was built after the destruction of, I believe, was the State Theater, which was down the street, and that's currently the Lorain National parking lot. So that was a larger theater, and when that was knocked down, this one was put up as a one-floor theater, which the design of this theater is what they call modern Egyptian, and it was originally part of what were Fox theaters that were going up across the country. You'll see a lot of theaters that are very similar to this one in design, including the Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. It's very similar. This one was designed as Ohio's largest one-floor theater because the balcony had fell on some people down the street. So their thought was maybe another tornado would come through here. So they designed it as a one-floor theater. It's 1,400 seats. Most of these are built with 1,400 seats, but this one was fanned out as opposed to being stacked with the balcony, so it is unique.
I'm sure a building that's almost 100 years old requires lots of maintenance. I also know that you've done a lot of renovations over the years. Am I correct to assume that maintenance and restoration are continuous activities?
Every day. So, first thing I'd like to say is that I have a really supportive board of directors. And honestly, they're always focused on the most important thing. And the structure is obviously the most important thing. 'Cause if you don't have walls and you don't have a roof, you can't put on shows. Aside from the lights and the sound and the carpeting and the aesthetic aspects, the group that I deal with on a monthly, sometimes daily basis has been really proactive on repointing the structure, on putting a new roof on the structure. Every day there's something that happens that you weren't expecting to because of the age of the building. I think that we sunk about $550,000 into plumbing in the past year.
Wow.
The roof was, I don't know, $800,000 at the time. We're lucky that we got it done when we did. It would be a lot more now. But without donations, funding, without the community foundation, the Nord Family Foundation, without the support of the board that I have, and a lot of kind members of the public, we wouldn't be able to survive strictly on operating revenue. Now, if we looked at operating revenue as a whole, could we consider it profitable? Yes, but the building needs constant work and TLC.
Can you tell us about the Wurlitzer organ?
So there's a 1928 Wurlitzer organ. It's submerged into the stage. It's on a lift. So we have to remove a couple of panels to pull it out. And then there's a lift and it rises up. That's one of, I believe, from what I understand, 4 in the world. It's original to the Palace Theater. There's pipes in the walls up there. It's super amazing. It's an antiquated technology, but it's essentially the world's first synthesizer. And if you go up into some of the rooms up there, and you'll actually see a drum kit, and when you press a button on the organ, it hits the drum or it hits the cymbal, as well as the pipes that are stereo on each side. So it's pretty amazing. I don't know who came up with that idea, but it's really something.
I've heard that people have traveled here to play the Wurlitzer.
Yeah, so when I first started here, Pete Schneider, who was our organist, and I haven't seen him in a little while, but he would arrange little events, and they'd have people come from other theaters that are organ players that would all come out and like pretty much have their chance to play it. It was pretty amazing. I'd love to do it again.
Can you go through the different kinds of performances, events, and experiences that the Palace offers throughout the year?
We try to diversify our programming to supply a little bit of everything for every cultural or interest group. We do ballets, we do plays, we do musicals, we do country, we do rock and roll, we do heavy metal, we do comedy, we do magic, we do dog shows, we do cat shows, we do animal shows. I believe that upcoming soon, believe it or not, we're going to be doing Disney on Ice. So it's a little bit of everything, and a lot of it depends on what the public will support. So I try to do something for everybody. Unfortunately, not everything's supported the way it should be. I used to have a list of things that I wanted to do that we haven't done yet, and man, I think we've checked off about everybody.
In addition to movies and performances, the theater can be reserved for a wide range of events, including weddings and private gatherings. What are the different ways it has been used?
So we have done weddings, and as you mentioned, we have done movies. We do take special interest in promoting local film producers and directors and stuff like that, as opposed to showing the latest Hollywood movie. I think that there's something to be said about focusing on local artists and filmmakers. That's always a pleasure. We do a lot of that. We have done some weddings. They were fantastic. The theater is rentable. Most of our programming isn't rented. I've done class reunions. I've done birthday parties. I've done paranormal investigations, pretty much anything that you could think of.
The Palace Theater is an important part of downtown Lorain. From your perspective, how do you see the Palace contributing to downtown Lorain and the broader economic and cultural revitalization efforts?
I'd like to think that we're a positive influence. I'm not sure I could think of another business downtown that does what we do specifically. Obviously, there's a lot of businesses that have been down here nearly as long, like Nielsen's. It's obviously been here a very long time. But I think that in our capacity, we're the only game in town and probably the only game in the county. I mean, this is a historic theater. It's not an auditorium. So a lot of the other venues think they compare, but I might be a bit biased.
From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges facing the Palace right now?
Oh, it's always money. Money is always the biggest challenge. We love what we do, but it's really easy to lose $30,000 in a day on a not supported show. Sometimes your ideas aren't always the best ideas. They're not always supported ideas. But if you can win more than you lose, then I guess that's what it's about. My goal overall is to bring back what this theater was built to do, which is pretty much everything.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities ahead for the Palace?
I don't think that we can do anything bigger than we've already done. That's kind of a weird perspective, but I mean, once you've sold out the place a number of times, that's just as big as you can get. I think that we're going to focus more in the upcoming year on stuff that we know is going to be a little bit more successful. I look forward to working with the city and with the Port Authority and with Tom Brown and putting some events together with them. Pretty much the sky's the limit.
Let's talk about marketing. How do you get the word out about the different shows and performances that are hosted at the Palace?
So every show is a complete different marketing conundrum. Probably the most difficult part about my job is getting the word out. Sometimes social media works well, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the newspaper is applicable. Sometimes billboards can be effective. Working with Gary over at the Cool Cat's been super helpful. What a great community partner that Cool Cat works for me as far as advertising does. But every show, depending on the demographic specifically, different sorts of advertising apply better. There's modern forms of marketing too, like geo-targeting or geo-fencing. So there's a little bit of everything, and just depending on what the event and the demographic is and what we think the most intelligent way to reach that particular demographic.
How do you envision the future of the Palace in the next 5 to 10 years? What growth or changes do you hope to see?
We hope to continue to beautify and improve the structural integrity of the facility. I think that's always the number one goal here. Obviously, we have big dreams. I could tell you a lot of crazy stuff that I'd wanted to do, like install giant video screens that roll up and down on each side, like getting seating that would flatten out so I could use it as a convention center sort of space. Some of these things are out of reach, but maybe they're not out of reach. There's a lot of crazy ideas with the help of my board, Dan Kelly and Tyrone Howard and Kevin Riley and Gary Sarasi and Becky Rodriguez and Ron Woolidge and Rick Rosso and Nicole Shinsky, and Debbie Panda was on our board too. She passed away, unfortunately. But my vision has been really supported from the very beginning, and some of my ideas have been pretty crazy. There's been some huge investments in sound and lighting and stuff like that, and actually where we're sitting. And if you'd have walked in here 10 years ago, it wasn't what it is today. I don't think it felt the same. I don't think that it was as cool of a place as it is now. And it's not really about us or anybody that works here. It's really about the people that come out to see the shows. So we've taken a focus to support what the community is interested in and removed all the politics from it pretty much.
How do you measure success at the Palace? What are the key metrics that you, your team, and your board are interested in?
Obviously, covering all the bases and trying to do something for everything is a good thing, but I think the financial aspect is the make or break of it, and funding isn't what it used to be. We don't have the donors that we had years ago, but we've tried to be creative with grants, and like I said, we've had support from certain individuals and foundations and stuff like that, so that's the focus. Unfortunately, all the fun and games, but you have to pay for it.
Is there a particular show or moment that stands out to you, something that really illustrates the impact of the Palace Theater, the "this is why we do it" moment?
Wow. Probably a lot of them. We had Ace Frehley here right before he passed away. I'm not even a big Kiss fan, but it was just an iconic moment, and it just touched so many people. I think that a lot of times I'm particularly moved not by how it affects me, but how it affects other people. And sometimes I have a couple that come in here and they came to their first date here and they sit in the same seats every time they come in. So I get to hear a lot of memories and I get to hear a lot of appreciation for specific stuff that has happened. And especially during the whole lockdown period, we did music out front and I had a couple old ladies come up to me and hug me and they said, "Thank you for doing this. I don't know what I'd do if you didn't do this."
Let's switch over and talk about you. What's your background and what led you to executive director of the Palace?
Most of my life, I've been a professional musician. I did work on the assembly line at Ford Motor Company for 11 years. I just came to a point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I literally played music full time as a guitarist, as a vocalist. And I also spent a lot of time developing, opening nightclubs, bars, and restaurants and stuff like that. And I actually got cold called about this position. I think they had went through a period where there wasn't really a long-term person here since John Handy said. There was a lot of turnover, and a friend of mine called a friend of mine and said, "Hey, do you know anybody that would run the palace?" He goes, "I think I have the guy." And they called me, and I took a $50,000 pay cut and said, "I'll take the job." I didn't know we were $500,000 in debt. The curtains were literally falling off the racks. There was no sound system. There were no lights, and there weren't any shows. And I just felt like it was meant to be.
How do you describe your leadership style, and who or what has influenced your approach the most?
My old boss, Jim DePaul, who ran the Savannah Bar and Grill in Westlake, was probably like my biggest inspiration and mentor as far as management goes. He always had a very subtle but stern sort of style. He's probably a little tougher than me. It's a fun business. It can also be very stressful and very heated. And I think that it takes a special type of person. And it's a real balance. If you've ever worked in the music industry or the entertainment industry, it could be real volatile at 1 second and then real happy and joyful the next. So I think that the whole thing is about balance. And my management style would probably be considered more social. I don't have an office. I don't go up and sit behind a desk and make phone calls. I kind of am boots on the ground, hands on here in the theater. And like I said, everybody here wears a lot of different hats. So it's a true team effort.
Outside of the theater, what are your hobbies and interests, and how do they help recharge you?
Most of my interests revolve around music and revolve around the theater. I did mention I'm a guitarist. I'm a vocalist. I still play. I still sing on occasion. I don't really have the time to do that I wish I did. I love to travel. I love the Lorain Metro Parks. I like to bike. I do a lot of biking at the park.
Finally, where can people go to get more information on the Palace Theater and connect with you?
LorrainePalace.com is obviously our website, and that's the home of everything that we do. If you could check out our page, look at our social media, maybe share it. Every little bit helps. I think that word of mouth is still the best form of advertising after 100 years.
Thank you, Christopher, for joining us and sharing your insights. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the LorraineCounty.com Insights Podcast. Each episode, we share conversations with the people shaping life in Lorain County, from business and government to education, nonprofits, healthcare, and entertainment. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can also visit LorraineCounty.com to discover local events, volunteer opportunities, and more community resources. If you know someone who's making a difference in Lorain County, send us a note at podcast@LorraineCounty.com. We would love to share their story and insights. Special thanks to our producer, Leah Gerke, and to you for listening. This has been the LorraineCounty.com Insights Podcast, conversations with the people shaping Lorain County.